Welcome back to the Longview PD On Air podcast. I'm your host, Michaela Vaughn.
Ryan Rockett.
Ladarian Brown.
Kendrick Montgomery.
Welcome to our first episode for 2026. This episode, the theme is Stronger Together. We're kind of just talking about how the Longview Police Department as a whole, we have a bunch of partnerships and programs that maybe our general public doesn't know about. And we're just going to talk about how they help us better serve our community.
Yeah, there's a recurring theme among everything that we're going to talk about today, is how we work better together with other agencies, other organizations, other entities within the city or community, county, state, national government, whatever it is, the partnerships that we develop, how they enhance the work that we do to produce a better result for the community that we serve.
So I guess kind of when people think of policing, they often think of like calling 911 and patrol cars, but there's a lot more that's goes in before that and also after that. So we're going to just kind of dive into that and talk about what we have here at Longview PD.
Yeah, so when people have an emergency, right? That's the typical mindset about what police do. They respond to emergencies. They handle problems that need an immediate fix. And it goes so far beyond just the crisis moments. And we try to plan the work that we do in a way that if we get in front of it and we're able to address things before it turns into a crisis and before it turns into a big problem, then that's a win for us. It's a win for the city, a win for the community, the county, whatever partnerships that we've developed. It's a win for everybody involved.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we emphasize on prevention. And
Yes.
we plan, like you're saying, for preventing a problem so it won't be a problem. And with that prevention and with that planning, it also helps us protect the citizens a whole lot better, just as a whole, not just as a police department, but like we're discussing today, just with all the programs and entities that we work with completely.
Yep. So yeah, like you said, Michaela, when people think about police, their immediate thought is emergency calls, 911, right? Traffic stops,
Yeah.
flashy lights on patrol cars, cops doing the cop stuff that you see on TV, right? But we have so much more. You know, it starts typically with the people calling 911 to report a problem. So our dispatchers get the phone call, they figure out what it should be labeled as as it relates to priorities of service and the way the response is taken care of, and send it to a patrol officer 99% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other times where it doesn't need to go to a patrol officer. It can go straight to a different entity. It can go to a sergeant, because some people will call in just asking a question. You know, they'll call 911 or the non-emergency number because they have a question about, hey, well, what do I do with this? How do I handle it? It's not necessarily a case where an officer needs to respond, but where they just are looking for some feedback, right? When the officers do have to go to a call, or a report's made on the phone, or whatever the case may be, they'll type up the case and they'll forward that up. Typically, the general process, it winds up going to a detective if it's something that needs to be investigated. And what we try to plan for is a process that can address anything that comes up. So we've got our typical detectives that work with crimes against persons, crimes against property, right? So if you have something stolen, it goes to a property detective. If someone's assaulted or robbed, it goes to a persons detective, right? But we've got other entities in CID as well. We have a cyber crimes division that works like internet crimes and computer-based technological crimes, things like that. We have a whole juvenile section that handles crimes with juvenile suspects or juvenile victims, right?
Well, let me ask this question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's say I am a victim
Yes.
of a pretty horrific crime or an incident, and I don't know how to navigate what to do after the report's been made, the detectives are investigating. What do I do? Who do I contact? Or do we have someone that victims can work with? And the whole purpose and why we're having, just so the listeners will know, Deputy Chief Rockett and Deputy Chief Montgomery here, these are our bureau commanders in our department. And so just about everything we're going to talk about is going to fall in one of their bureaus. So that's why we got those two here. But who do I talk to?
So when that happens, we have a victim services coordinator. So our victim services coordinator, it's a grant funded position from the federal government. and it provides funding to us to provide that position. And what that person does is, in the event that someone is a victim of a crime, that victim can come in and speak with that coordinator, and they will provide them with the resources they need, whether that be if they're a victim and they need a protective order, they'll walk them through that process of getting a protective order. If they need counseling, just anything they need, they'll walk them through that legal process.
Now, this victim service coordinator is not the person that's doing the counseling, though, right?
They're basically, think of them as a support. It's a civilian, a non-sworn position that they can talk to directly, as most people are probably not comfortable talking with law enforcement, especially when they're a victim. They're already traumatized by the fact that they were a victim of a crime, and then they're talking to an officer again. But this person is there to just navigate them through, like, what happens next, like what happens, like when am I going to court, to let them know that, hey, you're going to have to speak with detectives again. The person that abused me or hurt me is a family member. I have no support. I don't have any, like, navigating them through what's next.
And it's an all-encompassing thing.
Absolutely.
Like Deputy Chief Montgomery just said, it's not just how to pick up the pieces afterwards, but it's how to navigate through the process as it's going on. So if it is a traumatizing event, right? Something that's a pretty heavy thing to deal with as an individual, right? This person's not going to know how to navigate that. Your general population doesn't just automatically know how the judicial process works.
Correct.
How to pick up the pieces afterwards. I mean, there's some violent crime that happens everywhere, every day, right? And this victim service coordinator can go and can build that bridge and help them get through the process.
I think that's good for the people to know, because, there are some people who think that we just take the report and we're done and we don't care. But it's good to highlight the fact that, we don't just take the report, but we also help people recover their footing,
right,
after a critical incident.
Yeah, just for an example, we had a individual who passed away here in the city, and the only family that this person had, I think they were 18, 19 years old, that lost a family member. And so they come here to Longview and they're like, I really don't know how to navigate, funeral arrangements or, getting the person transported back home. And our victims coordinator was able to fill out some paperwork for them. Because victim coordinators work with nonprofits. There's a crime victims compensation through the state of Texas. And she was able to work them through the process of helping them plan a funeral and making arrangements to get that person taken back home and things like that. So that's just an example of some of the things that they can do.
Gotcha.
So not just taking reports, helping people get their footing after the fact.
Absolutely. And navigating them through that legal process. Yes.
Another program, I guess, or is this more like partnerships?
Yeah, partnerships.
Definitely partnerships.
So we have task force officers and then also federal partnerships. So
yeah, so this is it's also part of Kendrick's bureau that he deals with.
Yeah, so our task force officers, what our task force officers is they're officers who work for us. They have credentials with the FBI. We retain those employees. They still are Longview police officers. But being in those task force, it gives them the ability to, if we're working cases here, violent crime, gangs, or whatever that may be, as we all know, crime doesn't have borders. Am I wrong?
You are correct.
And so a case that something is happening here may have connections to Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, other states. And so when we're working those cases internally, that task force officer can look at that through that federal lens and provide us with additional personnel for investigations. Sometimes they may take those cases federal, or be able to get those cases and work them in conjunction with other states or other agencies. And each one of those are similar. Drug Enforcement Agency obviously is narcotics related, and our ATF are dealing with the illegal trade of firearms or people possessing firearms that shouldn't, explosives and things like that.
With the FBI partnership that we have, monthly we have meetings that we host here at Longview PD It's part of the East Texas Area Safe Streets Task Force. We call them just our Safe Streets meetings. But it brings in our partners from all over the region come in. We have representatives from Marshall, Harrison County, Longview, Gregg County, and then the federal agencies, the FBI, DEA, ATF, the TAG is all there. Like we've got a lot of representation from these different partners that we have that show up. And it's a big meeting to basically just make sure we're all on the same page. We share information that we've gathered through investigations that we have going on, because problems that we have in Longview are not specific to Longview, right? Just like Kendrick said, that crime has no borders, right? And criminals have no borders either, right? So the problems that we have here, we have individuals that don't just isolate themselves to Longview. So some of the criminals that we have causing problems will be the same criminals causing problems in Smith County and Harrison County and Gregg County, right? So if we have the ability to gather all the stakeholders for these partnerships in the same room to share this information, then what we may have a lead on for an investigation that we're working in Longview could benefit Tyler or Smith County. And by sharing that information, we're not able just to solve the problems we have here, but help out solving problems in other areas that we're close with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about partnerships and everybody on the same page, sharing information. When something happens, I'm really confident that we have all the right pieces in place and everybody's in the boat rowing in the same direction. So
I can also say that I've seen this firsthand in this PIO spot, that, goodness, they have unlimited resources sometimes that we just flat out do not have. So can y'all kind of help dive into a little bit of not necessarily what all resources they help us with, but like how often do we use the resources that they have to share with us as a department?
So without getting too detailed, for example, when we're working investigations, sometimes there's certain tools, software that could be utilized through them. And they can provide that technology to us to use. Or if it's a situation where we just need personnel, they'll provide that personnel to us. If we're doing a prolonged investigations, and obviously the Longview Police Department, we only have so many personnel to utilize for certain things, because our number one priority is making sure our streets are safe and our calls that are coming in, we have to deal with that. But prolonged investigations, they can provide us people, software, tools, or whatever we need to do that.
One of the biggest resources that we gain from these partnerships is the manpower, the ability to have more thorough investigations because we have more bodies and more eyes looking at it, right? Without getting case specific again, the ability that we have to take small cases, and I say small with air quotes, right? The small cases that we develop here at the patrol level in Longview, and utilize the information that we glean from the investigation on those cases to develop more contacts and more links to bigger crimes, to more organized criminal activity. We're able to accomplish that through these partnerships that we have at the federal level. We can take what at face value seems to be a small, typical run-of-the-mill drug case, right? And turn that into a very large investigation that winds up getting a lot of really bad criminals off the street. And we do that all behind the scenes because we don't want to let out the information that we have immediately, because we want to get more than just the low-level players that we have in the criminal field. We want to enhance these investigations and develop them into something more. So just because you don't see every little thing that we do doesn't mean that there's not a lot going on. We recently just wrapped up a very large investigation that started off with something relatively small.
I know we've been talking about partnering with federal agencies, but we don't just partner with our state and the federal government, but we also partner with other municipalities and the county and all that good stuff. For example, let's kind of transition over into a major partnership that we have with Dallas PD, which is our ICAC.
Okay.
Yeah, so ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children. and we're affiliate of that program, which is out of Dallas PD. And the primary the purpose of that is, now we have in our criminal investigations divisions, we have a special victims unit, and in that unit, they're responsible for investigating internet crimes, crimes against children, human trafficking, and things like that. And being a part of that task force, it gives them the ability to investigate any kind of internet type crime, especially that are targeting children or human trafficking that's going on online.
Yeah, it's a very beneficial thing that we have here. Again, it goes back to the partnership that we have that gives us more manpower and more investigative skills. But there's also a source of funding that comes from that. So we can have our officers here, our detectives here, working extra hours, and we get reimbursed for the overtime from the ICAC organization out of Dallas, right? So it's not just bodies, but also a source of funding, a source of training, a source of technology that we have at the department now that we have access to that we wouldn't otherwise have. It's a real beneficial thing, and it goes leaps and bounds beyond what we would be capable of on our own.
Yeah, and it's not always about enforcement either. Obviously, they do get tips sometimes that lead to arrests, but a lot of times when those tips come through, they're looked at, and it's just like it's an opportunity for our detectives to reach out to the parents and educate them about things that they could do at home to educate their children about, how they browse and how they, they watch out for certain things online.
Gotcha. Is there anything parents can do today to reduce risk, or if they do have concerns, report those?
I think the best tip that I have is, giving children, I mean, I get it. You're going to give your kids cell phones and with internet access and tablets and computer and things like that, but you need to monitor those things, lock those things down.
It starts with a conversation between parents and kids, right? If you're a parent that doesn't have those conversations, then you're setting your child up for failure.
You're just leaving the door open.
Right, absolutely. And the internet, it's an amazing resource.
It's 2026. I mean, everything is...
Yeah, it's all out there.
Yeah.
But the internet's an amazing resource for everybody. There's so much good that comes from the ability to have this instant access to any information that you're looking for. But there's also a dark side to it. And people need to be aware of the fact that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? In cases like these internet crimes against children, as soon as you push a button on your keyboard or click your mouse, it's done, right? And it's out there for the world forever. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have those conversations with your kids about what's important and how to be safe and how to conduct themselves appropriately. And if you don't have those conversations, you're really setting yourself up for failure.
Okay, we're going to transition and talk about our POST and PAR units. PAR is our police area representative unit, and POST being our police outreach service team. PAR is more crime prevention focused. We have 4 representatives. They each represent 2 beats in the city. PAR is our big flagship for PAR's National Night Out. We've talked about PAR quite a bit, but we have a former PAR in the room, so you guys can get into it more than I can.
Well, the funny thing about PAR, I actually enjoy talking about PAR. I went to PAR in 2019. I actually succeeded Deputy Chief Montgomery when he was in the position before me, and now Officer LaRoche Johnson succeeded me. PAR is one of my favorite things. I think that it's really one of the lifelines of our department. So, we're talking about partnerships today, and in my humble opinion, the greatest partner we have is our community. Without our community, we wouldn't be able to accomplish a whole lot. Chief Montgomery, maybe you can talk about some of your experience from your heyday back in PAR.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of my favorite assignments, is being a PAR officer. And I learned a lot being in that unit because, like you said, it's all about community partnerships and getting out and getting to know your community. The unique part about PAR versus your normal patrol officer is they are assigned to a certain section of the city. So it's not a rotating thing. They're there all the time. And what I always used to tell people in PAR, like whenever you're calling law enforcement, you're never a bother to us whenever there's an issue because you live in the community, you know your neighbors, you know what's going on. But for your patrol officer who is working the streets, answering calls and driving down the street every day, they may not recognize that something's out of place. So we'd really depend on the community to tell us what's out of place and what's wrong. But being a PAR officer, being assigned to those areas, it was an opportunity to meet people in the neighborhoods on a personal basis. So when they had issues, it wasn't, I'm calling the police department, I'm calling Officer Montgomery, I'm calling Officer Brown or whoever.
Yeah.
It was more of a personal relationship. And I always said that being a PAR officer is a little in between. Like you're not an enforcement officer. You're really there trying to take care of your community and actually connecting them to other resources they may need. You get complaints about other things that affect the community as a whole, like trash or abandoned buildings or substandard buildings. And as a PAR officer, you kind of connect the community to the resources that the city offers to try to help solve the problem. And by doing that, you're solving a bigger problem for the police department, because when you have an area that's not taken care of, criminals typically think that they don't take care of this place, then it's probably a good place for me to settle in and operate.
And it's not just all about, meetings and not just about connecting folks solely. A big piece of PAR is education.
Education, absolutely.
So, hey, if you have a church, if you have a group that is needing to be informed about a certain subject when it comes down to, okay, let's just, for example, fraud, then, hey, you can have the PAR officer come out and speak to that group about that. I know as a PAR officer, I had to do a lot of security surveys where you go out and you tell people where their home or their business may be vulnerable to eventually become a victim. The good thing about Longview PD, we have quite a few of our PAR officers are certified crime prevention specialists. And so they go through, trust me, a series of training to learn how to get that certification and become that specialist. And they're able to come out and educate the general public on how to keep their property and how to keep their businesses safe. And I think education was one of my favorite things to do in PAR, was just teaching people how to take care of themselves and not how to open themselves up to become victims. And when we say security survey, we're not going around just giving you a couple of sticky notes either about, you might want to think about this. No, it's pretty detailed. The biggest groups that our department has done them for is churches. I think that we've done it for churches more than anything. So, and I would encourage any department, if you're not in Longview, if you're in outside department that's listening, you definitely need to get some people on your team that's doing crime prevention. It helps drastically. It helps with your crime rate and things of that nature, because the more people know, the more people are aware of how to protect themselves and protect their property. That minimizes your crime inside your city. So I just think it's a great program and a great opportunity for our citizens. But I just think that that's one of the greatest programs and greatest units we have in our department.
And another thing that is only possible through the partnerships that are developed from the PAR officers to the other resources that you're able to refer people to.
So our POST team, Police Outreach Service Team, this is our team that is our homeless outreach team. And we recently, because of a grant, went from 2 officers in that unit to now 4. And I'll let you guys talk about that.
Right. So the POST team started from an idea that the mayor had, part of the mayor's task force. Mayor Mack, when he was in office, had this idea of, he saw an issue that needed to be addressed, saw that the current ways that were in place of addressing this issue needed to be looked at. And he implemented this task force, and Mayor Ishihara now has stepped in and continued to grow it from what it was to what it is now. But the biggest purpose behind this is, again, partnerships throughout our community that are able to allow us to hook up individuals who are experiencing mental health crisis or homelessness or any other issues along those same lines, and get them in connection with different resources that can help find ways to benefit them and to help them better the situation that they're in. It goes from the partnerships we have with mental health facilities throughout town, through rehab centers and treatment programs all over the region, the partnerships we have with our local judges, our county judges, district judges that are willing to step in and say, hey, this is a problem that we need to find an outside the box solution for, because what we've been doing for so long is not having the effect that we're looking for.
So let me ask this question, Chief. What's the difference between enforcement and outreach when it comes to homelessness? Because they're called the outreach service team. So what's the difference?
So kind of back up just a little bit, and I'm just going to answer your question. So when this unit started out, it was more of a, hey, this is what it is, but really didn't have a really good roadmap on where it would go. So initially it was all about getting those officers out there, trying to identify those people who were homeless or in need, and then trying to figure out, what do we do next? All about trying to reduce the calls of service, but not necessarily put them in jail either. So when you ask about outreach, when you talk about outreach, is find these people. For an example, you find someone who is homeless, and it could have been someone whose previous experience with law enforcement, every time I see an officer, I'm trespassing, whatever the case may be, and I'm going to jail. But with the outreach team, it was trying to find out, why are you homeless? Like, why are you in the situation that you're in, and trying to connect them with either other family members, or trying to find out, do they have resources available to them that they don't have? Are they trapped here in Longview and they have resources in other places? How can we get them there? So when we look at outreach for that, it was different mindset of, I guess, a patrol officer who's answering a call, person is trespassing, the person is doing this, and let's deal with it. This was okay, let's figure out what's going on. Let's talk to the business owner, whoever it is, and let's try to figure out a solution other than jail. And that kind of morphed into talking with judges and things like that to try to keep these people out of jail versus let's work a plan with them to get off the streets and get the resources they need, because jail is only setting them back. And so that kind of morphed into kind of really identifying these people and helping them, trying to connect resources. Then it morphed into some more long-term things with them, as far as finding places for them to get treatment, checking on them while they're there, when they getting out, helping them with home placement. That's the outreach portion of it. It's not, they dress like police officers, look like police officers, but enforcement is not the first priority.
The big thing that they do, I'm sorry to cut you off, is they do a lot of work with GLOW, which is the Greater Longview Optimal Wellness, right? And it's another task force partnership that we have here in Longview that's comprised of police officers, social workers, medical staff from the fire department. I mean, it's all encompassing again, so they can find these individuals who are, maybe they are homeless because they've been experiencing mental health crisis, and maybe they're in that mental health crisis because they haven't been able to get their medication, right? It's already diagnosed and they just don't have the means to go about taking care of the business that they need to take care of to get back on track. And through their partnership with GLOW, they're able to set these people up immediately with resources from Community Health Corps and the medical field and whatever it is, right? So they can go out and within a matter of hours get someone who is experiencing an immediate crisis and have them in the hands of the proper resources.
Next, we're going to talk about our traffic division, some of the different things, grants they have, and just kind of different things they do.
Cool. So we've got a traffic unit here at Longview PD. It's comprised of 6 officers and a sergeant. And everybody thinks about traffic and they're like, okay, if you get stopped by somebody in the traffic unit, you're getting a ticket, right? But it's so much more than just traffic enforcement as you would stereotypically think of traffic enforcement, right? Yes, they do. Their primary role is to enforce the traffic laws and to investigate crashes, right? They're accident investigators that are in there. So they're certified in accident investigation and accident reconstruction. So any major accident that includes serious bodily injury, death, or significant financial loss from property damage will be investigated by an accident investigator. But another thing that they do is our traffic unit is in charge of commercial motor vehicle enforcement, as well as they lead up the STEP grant that we have. And STEP is the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. STEP, the way that works is it's a way for us to have officers assigned to specific areas to focus solely on traffic problems. So no seatbelts and speeding and DWI enforcement, right? So they'll spend a certain amount of time without any other responsibility. So they don't have to balance the traffic between calls for service, emergency 911 calls, or whatever else is going on. It is a dedicated time that they are out to enforce these traffic laws that can present significant problems should a crash occur, right? So if someone's not wearing a seatbelt and they get into an accident, the chances of them being seriously injured are significantly higher than otherwise. Same thing with speed. Obviously, the faster vehicles go and the more damage will be caused by it, right? And then DWI enforcement is pretty self-explanatory. If people are intoxicated, they have no business driving on the roads and endangering the safety of everybody else who's out there. This STEP program is funded through a grant that we get every year from the state of Texas. And it goes into paying the hourly wages of the officers who are working as part of this program. The other side is the commercial vehicle enforcement that we talked about. This is a way for us to make sure that the vehicles that are capable of causing significantly more damage than your typical passenger cars, it's a way to make sure that they are driving in ways that are safe for everybody. So the enforcement that they do for those is they do traffic inspections, or vehicle inspections rather, on these vehicles. And they do all of that again through another grant that we get. And it allows them to get out and make sure that the big trucks that are driving on the same roads beside you and I on the way to work are safe and suitable to be on the roads. The locations that we have the officers go when they're working the STEP program, these are targeted areas. So we look at months of data for statistics of where the most crashes are, where crime is, where these problems are, and that's where we focus our resources when we start working the STEP program. We don't just tell them to go out there and start doing traffic enforcement. We target the areas that have a higher likelihood of crashes because of these issues that they're out there working. And that's where we come up with the places that they work. We're not just throwing darts at a board and trying to figure out where they land, you know.
Speaking of using data,
yes,
a lot of people may not know. Let's talk about our crime analysis here at Longview PD.
Okay.
Give us an example of how that part of our department changes where we focus our attention and where we may focus resources. And I know we were talking about traffic division, but just in all aspects of our department, can y'all kind of explain that to the people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the crime analysis that we have, the unit it's part of our intelligence division, right? And we have a couple of crime analysts that are civilian employees that their sole job is to go through every bit of information that we collect and that is shared with us from our partnering agencies, and figure out where the problems are likely to be, what's caused the problems, who's caused the problems, when they're occurring, right? So they do so much that just about every other part of our department relies on in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? So we talked about the STEP stuff, how we go through that data to see where the most crashes are so we know where to focus our resources, right? We do the same thing with the crime analyst and the information that they're able to provide.
Kind of the best way to explain crime analysis, I guess, from my lens, it's the ultimate internal support service, kind of like we talked about PAR, just in a different way. It's a place where if a detective is working on a case and they have a lot of data, they can literally take it to that crime analysis, give them that data, and that crime analysis can pretty much give them or find anything they're looking for. Or if it's a patrol issue where DC Rockett will go to the crime analysis and say, hey, last month, I need to know how many wrecks we had during a certain period of time. They can give him that data.
It's an efficiency thing when it comes down to it. And if we can find ways to be more efficient, then we're more responsible with the money that our taxpayers are providing for us to be able to provide the services. Picking the times and the places that we need to have our resources, where we need to be and where we don't need to be, right? There's some times that we will go back and look at the stats and realize that, 2 months ago, we directed our people to start working a spot that was really hot for crime, really high intensity for crashes. But then we go back and look at it again, and we're still working that area, but there's been a change in the patterns, right? It's no longer occurring in that specific place. So it allows us to go back and reevaluate.
Our last little bit right here, we're just going to talk about some of the partnerships we have and dealing with our SWAT, our training, all different kinds of things, just partnerships that we have.
Yeah, we've got, we've talked about a significant number of community partners that we have. But one thing that I really want to emphasize is the partnership that we share with the Gregg County Sheriff's Office. They have been a lifeline for us. And I like to think that we return the favor as much as we can, and we're there on the other side of that equation as well. We've got an incredible relationship with the Gregg County Sheriff's Office to the point that we combine our resources in so many different aspects of this job. We do the alert training. A few episodes back, we had Sergeant Allison on, and he talked about alert and the program and the state mandates and the training that's required for officers. Right. A big partnership we have, though, with that alert training is with the Gregg County Sheriff's Office. We combine the resources that we have along with other stakeholders and other partners. Right. But the relationship we have with the Sheriff's Office allows us to get more officers throughout this area directly involved with that training and to set everybody up for success that's in any kind of position that they would be able to mitigate one of these circumstances of an active attack. With the resources joining together, like you're talking about, a great example of that is with our SWAT team. Right, it's the Longview Police SWAT team, but it's comprised of officers from Longview PD as well as the Gregg County Sheriff's Office. Through that, not only do we have extra bodies than we would have alone here in Longview, right, but we also have an extra source of funding that is there because of the relationship that we have with the Sheriff's Office. It also gives us the ability to have something like the new command bus that we have. That was a huge undertaking to replace a very, very outdated mobile emergency operations center for something that's state of the art and truly among one of the best in the state of Texas. Now, that partnership is not just Longview PD and Gregg County Sheriff's Office. That's also with the Longview Fire Department, who is another entity that we do have a really good relationship with. The training, even going back again to the alert, there are several medics with the fire department who are also involved in the alert training as instructors. And it's also a requirement that they have that training as well. So not only is it a law enforcement based thing, but it's law enforcement, it's fire department, it's EMS, right? And we have those relationships and partnerships that allow us to bring that all to fruition.
Yeah, another partnership that we have and I want to talk about is our police academy. Since 2020, when we were dealing with COVID and colleges shutting down and things like that, we created our first in-house police academy, which we ran successfully up until last year. And last year, we actually partnered with Kilgore College and their police academy. So we've partnered with them, and now we provide our own. We still provide a police academy, but that's a partnership that we now have with Kilgore College.
Right. And through that partnership, it gives us the ability to help train law enforcement officers for agencies beyond just Longview and Gregg County, right? We have officers from all over the region
Yeah, another partnership I want to mention and we're appreciative to have is the Children's Advocate Center, or called the Martin House here in Longview. I talked about the Special Victims Unit earlier and how they work the internet crimes against children, and things like that. But they're a partner of ours. They provide a safe environment for children when we have to interview them or they interview them. They have specialists there that can assist us with those investigations that are involved with children. They have people who are specially trained to talk to children and try to limit re-traumatizing them to the event, but also getting what they need. Brings investigators, prosecutors, and advocates together and provide family support for those who need it.
The work that they do with these children who have been through some terrible experiences is absolutely phenomenal. Being able to know that these kids are in such good hands throughout the course of an investigation for something that has been so traumatizing for them is really reassuring, and it should be reassuring for everyone in Longview to know that our children are taken care of so well.
Yeah, it's great to know that they have that support. On that note, thank y'all so much for being on and talking about just some of the programs we have to kick off 2026. Maybe some of the programs that our citizens don't know about. We hope if you listen, you learn something new. And thank y'all so much for being on, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.